What's today? May 8th? May 8th, 2021. There's a bear.
30-06 John here, and today what I'm going to be talking about is what bear guns did the old timers use. I'm talking about from the beginning of the smokeless powder era, about 1890, 1894, to about 1956. So keep on watching, and I hope you enjoy the video. I've been catching up on my reading this winter, reading some old gun and hunting books, and it sort of dawned on me that they're using cartridges and guns that we don't really think about anymore. So I just wanted to list those. Some of the books I'm reading, this is just some of them. Some books by Jack O'Connor, the Larry Knutt, Alaska Bear Tales books, but also a lot of other older Alaska books. Alaska Tracks, Jim Reardon's Alaska. Also, since I'm talking about the era from the beginning of smokeless powder until about 1956, there's actually grizzly hunting in the continental U.S., Wyoming, Colorado. So I try to include information from there also. The reason why I'm using 1956 as the cutoff date is because that was the year that the .458 Winchester Magnum was introduced. And that sort of set off the Magnum belted case craze. The 7 Rem Mag, the 300 Winchester Magnum, 338 Win Mag, a whole bunch of other cartridges was introduced shortly after the .458 Winchester Magnum. And a lot of people are more familiar with those cartridges. There was a lot of cartridges used for bear hunting. And what I tried to do was pare it down to the most popular ones, and the ones that the experienced old-timers, guides, bush rats, people like that had a lot of experience in outdoors used. The 4570 was introduced as a black powder cartridge. It did transition to smokeless powder. The first lever action rifle chamber was the Marlin 1881. It beat the Winchester by about 5 years. The 4590 was sort of popular. It was, of course, chambered in the Winchester 1886 lever-action rifle, and it, too, successfully made the transition to smokeless powder. The 303 British was initially introduced as a black powder cartridge. It was quickly transitioned to smokeless powder. It really got popular in Canada because of all the surplus rifles after World War I and World War II. That's sort of like Canada's 30-06. I wasn't going to include the 3030 on this list, except I kept reading stories about how Alaska natives or Indians in the lower 48 used the 3030 on grizzly and brown bears. Here's a cartridge you don't hear about much anymore, the 33 Winchester. It's basically a neck-down 4570 to 33 caliber. Of course, it's chambered in the Winchester 1886 lever-action rifle. There's some bear guides that really like their 33 Winchester lever actions. Here's another cartridge you don't hear about much anymore, the 35 Winchester. This is basically a 30-40 Craig case necked up to 35 caliber. Of course, Winchester chambered ammunition for it, and it was chambered in the Winchester 1895 lever action rifle. The .405 Winchester is a powerful cartridge, even by today's lever action standards. It was chambered in the Winchester 1895 rifle. The 30-06 became popular after World War I. A lot of soldiers coming back were used to shooting bolt-action rifles. A lot of the gun manufacturers were using military pattern bolt-action rifles. They would commercialize them, like this Remington 30 here. There's a lot of grizzly bears killed with the 30-06. In all my readings, I would say it had to be the most popular cartridge used. Even though the 375 H&H was introduced in 1912, really didn't become popular in the U.S. until Winchester introduced the Model 70 bolt-action rifle in 1935, 1936. After that, bear guides really found it as a really useful cartridge, and they really started latching onto that. The 35 Whalen was pretty popular back in the 20s and 30s and 40s. It was considered the poor man's Magnum. I believe there were some factory rifles chambered for this Wildcat cartridge, even though you couldn't buy factory ammunition. But it was pretty good on bears, brown bears and grizzly bears. A 270 Winchester is considered light for a brown or grizzly bear, but I kept reading stories about people using that cartridge on them, and they seem to have pretty good success, pretty good luck with it. A lot of times they were using something like an early Winchester Model 54 bolt-action rifle, but the 270 seems to be getting the job done. The 300 H&H Magnum became popular in the U.S. After Winchester introduced the Model 70, chambered for it in 1936, 1937. Then for quite a few years, that was the 300 Magnum, and it was pretty popular. The 348 Winchester and the Winchester Model 71 lever-action rifle were introduced in 1936. It is a very powerful cartridge. It's actually still being used today in Alaska. When they did introduce this combination, Winchester stopped making the 1886 and the 1895 lever-action rifles. So this was the Winchester's big bore lever action rifle. When the 300 Weatherby was introduced, it was a very expensive rifle, but I keep reading about a lot of hunters going on guided hunts, and they all used 300 Weatherbys, and they seem to be doing pretty good on brown and grizzly bears.